Hey everyone, Dan here with Fanatik Bike. If you've been following along with us on social media, you've probably seen some of REVEL bikes popping up, like this rail here. A couple of guys from REVEL have stopped into town to do a bike demo, and we took some time out of their day to get out on the trails with the bikes and talk a little bit about them. So Kevin, tell me who you are and who comprises REVEL bikes.
I'm Kevin. I was the first employee with REVEL bikes. We started with a sister company, Y Cycles, about 3 years ago. So I've been there since day one.
This was in Ogden, Utah, is that right?
Utah, yep. Yeah. Yep. So first year and a half was in Ogden, Utah. Then we moved to Carbondale, Colorado. So yeah, I used to work in the industry at Enve Composites for about a year, and then also Scott Sports in their warranty department. They also managed a shop for many years in Ogden. So.
And through Enve, you got to know Jason Shears, is that right?
Yep, so I've known Jason,
the founder of Enve.
Yep, and so that's actually how I got in contact with Adam Miller, the founder of REVEL Bikes and Y Cycles. A little bit about him. He went to school at Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and for a project he started a company called Borealis Fat Bikes. It's one of the first, I think the first carbon fiber fat bike company. So he did that for a couple years, ended up selling it to his business partner and taking a few years off. He's originally from Alaska, kind of comes from like a roadie triathlon background. Then he got his eyes open when he jumped on a mountain bike and kind of knew he wanted to create a mountain bike brand eventually. So when he took some time off, he ended up moving to Ogden, which then got him in touch with Jason Shears.
Okay.
So.
And there was a brief interlude there where he was doing titanium hardtail mountain bikes, right?
Yep.
Y Cycles,
yep.
Your sister company.
Yep. So he started Y Cycles. Started out with 2 models there, and at one of the events he ended up jumping on a Canfield and pretty instantly on the trail realized that there was something special there, and started doing his research and couldn't find a brand that did it in a carbon fiber. So
used this suspension design on a carbon fiber frame.
Yep.
So he brought in a bunch of other industry sort of heavy hitters, one of which Jeremiah Starkey.
Yep, Jeremiah Starkey. So he worked for RockShox for many years, probably about a decade, if not a little bit more. He also worked for Trust Performance, which is that linkage fork.
Yep. And now he's full-time with REVEL.
Yeah. So he moved to Carbondale in January, and yeah, been helping us out a ton.
And you were telling me that pretty much everyone involved in the company, you said it's 9 people now?
Yep, 9
has
people.
all moved to Carbondale to be with and around the company, which I think shows a lot of dedication. All right, so Kevin, currently REVEL has 2 bike models. Give us a run through of what they are. This is the rail we've got here. What's going on here?
So the rail is a 27.5-inch wheel, 165 rear travel, 170 front travel, 65-degree head tube angle, 75-degree seat tube angle. Pretty modern geometry, not super long, but not short.
Kind of a nice neutral balance between like the crazy long bikes that we're seeing out there.
Yeah.
Old school, short bikes.
Yep, and so we did a 27.5, just longer travel. A bunch of us in the shop really enjoy 27.5, and with the pedaling platform of the suspension design, it pedals really well. So,
so would you say you're out in Carbondale, Colorado? Would you say who is this bike kind of aimed at?
It's more of like a all mounts in enduro style. So if you're looking for a park bike, something that's gonna, really be able to charge downhill but still pedal really well. It really is a very playful bike. So even though it's a long travel bike, it is very capable of being fun on a little bit more mellow of a trail, but it can handle the really steep stuff and really gnarly terrain.
Totally, yeah. I thought that to be entirely true on my time on it, particularly that it pedaled extremely well. The other bike in your lineup is the Rascal. Yep. Looks very similar. Got some very cool colorways going on there. That's 130 rear.
140 front.
Okay.
66-degree head tube angle, same thing, 75 on the rear. Seat tube angle, again, kind of a more modern geometry, but not too long, not too short. Definitely aimed more for like a trail bike, kind of an all-around bike. Once again, it pedals very well, so you can build them up fairly lightweight. So, yeah, great all around.
So you got 2 bikes in your lineup so far. You launched them both at the same time. They've both been hits, as far as I can tell, looking around on the internet. probably surprise you with this question, but do you have any models coming up down the road that you can hint on, or not at this point?
Not at this point. Obviously, we're always working on something and like wanting to, expand the lineup. The lineup.
I think honestly, I think this is a great start between these two bikes.
Yeah, kind of hits both markets. Something a little bit more gravity fed scene, but also they have more pedally with the Rascal being a 130, 140, 29.
Yeah. So. And we will do more in-depth videos on each bike. But I will point out, I've spent most of my time on the Rascal, the 130 mil 29er, and I freaking love it. I've ridden it up and then also down, really gross stuff, and I think it does it all pretty well, particularly noteworthy how well it pedals. All right, Kevin, so at this point, REVEL has 2 bikes that they brought to market, 2.5 years in the making, but tell us a little bit more about how Adam kind of thought this all through and how it all came to be.
So yeah, he jumped on a Canfield at one point, really liked how it pedaled, wanted to build a carbon fiber mountain bike because he does come from the carbon fiber background. So he reached out to Chris. Chris was more than happy to help him with the bike and license his suspension design, the CBF, Canfield Balance Formula. So it kind of started about 2.5 years ago. Jason was a big part of the whole carbon fiber layup. We did a lot of prototyping.
And this is Jason from Enve, founder of Enve?
Yep. So Jason, the founder of Enve, like I said earlier, carbon master. He just knows what he's talking about. So through that whole prototyping, we did change up the carbon fiber quite a bit. Did a lot of testing on it, and using his layups with the same amount of material, it was significantly stiffer in a good way than the previous what we were doing.
And so when you say layup, you're just talking about how these different sheets of carbon fiber are put on top of each other, oriented, the fibers are oriented, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Cool.
To make it stiffer, in certain areas, a little bit more compliant in other areas. And then from there, Mike Giese, he's the one that did all the ID work for us.
Steezy Geese, as he's known on
super
Instagram.
talented kid on the bike and behind the computer, making stuff look pretty. So he definitely did.
So he came up with the look of the bike, is that right?
Yep. So he took all, the pivot points and everything and made it look pretty and made it work correctly. So
they are very good looking bikes.
Yeah.
One question I had, you said that Adam jumped on a Canfield and said, I got to make this into a bike. At that point, did he already have it in his head that he wanted to make a full suspension mountain bike? Like, he's coming from the titanium hardtails, or was it that he jumped on this particular bike and he said, I need to make this into a carbon fiber frame?
He always had in the back of his head. I mean, Adam's a business guy. He's very motivated. He's always thinking,
scheming on something.
5 steps ahead of what he's going to do next. And yeah, he was definitely had in his mind of wanting to do a full suspension carbon bike eventually.
Cool.
I think that just kind of sped up the process once he jumped on the Canfield, and once he started doing research for his personal bike, and in the Canfield being a little bit heavier, not being able to find a carbon bike in that suspension design, he's like, there's open market to one of the best suspension designs out there. So
no, it was cool to hear. I remember when this became public on Pink Bike and stuff, I was really happy to see it because Canfield were based in Bellingham for a long time. I've got plenty of friends that ranted and raved about the bikes, with sort of one setback being the weight. They're heavy, kind of old school tanks of bikes. So I think this is really cool that lives on in an awesome carbon fiber frame. All right, so you told us about Adam's background. We've got yourself from Enve and other big retailers in the industry. We've got Mike Giese designing the layup of the frame. Who else is involved in this? Where did they all come from?
Flynn George, which he used to work for Borealis Fat Bikes. He is the product guy.
Enduro racer. You've told me that he was sort of integral in nailing down a bunch of details on how the bikes sort of rode and felt.
Yep. Making sure they last through, quite the beating on riding them pretty hard. So
yeah. He looks like a pretty big guy.
Yep. He definitely put some stress on bikes. So.
And actually, you told me that prior to these being launched, he was on a prototype and rode it with some success at a bunch of races.
Yeah,
out where you guys
local
are.
evening enduro race, took first on it. It was pretty funny. Went
Sweet.
up there, just messed around, and yeah.
I was out riding bikes all day with you and Chris, who used to work at Industry 9, is that right?
Yep, so he was the marketing guy at Industry 9 and then also Y Cycles, and has done freelance stuff throughout the industry for many years now. So
Cool. Anybody else?
our two sales guys, Greg and Andy, came from Carl Cyclists. They were there for many years, SRM, and then they also worked at Boreas Fat Bikes with them.
Rad. So pretty close-knit group of people.
Yep, all stars.
All pretty
in the
stoked on the
industry.
product.
Yep.
Rad. All right, Kevin, so you've told us a lot about the background of the company, a little bit about the bikes, but I kind of wanted to cover why someone should consider buying one of these bikes. It seems sort of the genesis of these is the CBF suspension design. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and why you guys like it so much?
Yeah, totally. So the CBF suspension design kind of focuses on something called the center of curvature. And if you want to read more about that, you can jump online and read about it. But in more simple terms, is why it works so well is it's active throughout the whole suspension. So whether you're at 10% sag or 100% sag, it's always going to pedal the same.
Whereas other bikes only pedal well
At 30% sag.
at the exact
Once
sag that they
you get more into the travel, so you're at 60% sag. That chain, when you're pedaling, is actually yanking on the suspension up or down. That's where you get a lot of the pedal bob.
Yep.
Also, it's a very progressive suspension, so you can have it really supple off the top end, and you're not going to just blow through that travel bottom out super hard.
Gotcha. Actually, question that pertains to that I hadn't thought of. You guys, can you run coil shocks on these bikes?
We're working on a few coil options.
Okay.
As of now, with how progressive it is, it's a little tough to
Make
put
it work.
a coil on there. Yeah.
Cool. Maybe down the road.
Another really important thing is the braking. It's active throughout the whole suspension. You don't get any kind of, you don't move the suspension when you're grabbing the brake at all. You don't get any kind of brake jack. It's just active throughout the whole suspension. So.
Sweet. Cool. Other details, there's a whole lot of really thoughtful details on these frames. You mentioned things like the threaded bottom bracket. I see you've got an integrated chain guide there. That's pretty. Anything else that?
Super clean. Internal routed cable.
Oh yeah, with tubes.
Yep, it's carbon molded
inside.
in there, which is pretty important, very important. It's quiet, it's very easy to route.
So there's not going to be anything rattling
Nope,
around in there.
nothing in there rattling around. You just take the cable, slide it right through, pops out the bottom, put it into the chainstay. Yeah, so another couple cool things with our bikes. Titanium hardware up here on the shock and down by the yoke. Our paint is very durable. There's actually 9 layers of primer on there, so it's not going to chip like some other bikes do. We've put it through, quite a bit of prototyping and haven't had any issues yet. Also, the integrated headset,
Which
super
just makes
clean.
for a really clean look.
Very clean look. Yep.
Oh, I thought it was really cool, the rear through axle. You said.
Yeah. So the stealth axle back here, as you can see, it's a 5mm Allen key. It is on this side and this side, so if you happen to strip it out, you can get your axle out. Super lightweight, pretty rad. And then also going back to the pivots and everything, we do use like a double bearing on all of our pivots for durability.
Just
so
longevity.
Yep. Over the 2 years of prototyping, haven't had any issues with it. So.
Rad.
Yeah.
I do like all the super clean look that you mentioned. Mike Giese worked on things like the integrated chain stay protector. Obviously, you've got another one down here. I think all in all, these bikes have a really, really clean aesthetic to them that I like a lot.
Yep. Another cool thing we did is we kept the seat tube clear throughout all the linkage, so you can run the maximum dropper you can. We have a pretty cool Excel sheet on our website, so you can put in your saddle height and you can figure out how long of a dropper you can run. Most people should be able to run a 170 dropper with no problem.
That's pretty cool. Really cool frame design. Anything about the sort of ethos of the company itself that you want to touch on? I know that you guys are really big on sustainability.
Yep, so packing and everything like that, we try and recycle everything. So when we do pack up our frames, we use pretty much all recycled packaging. Everything down to Ziploc bags we get from other vendors. We take out the product and we reuse those Ziploc bags.
So you guys are getting a bunch of stuff in that you order up to make this all happen. You're reusing all that bubble wrap and everything else.
Yep, we try and eliminate throwing away anything. So
you've mentioned you've had customers ring you up and say, "Hey, why is all this bubble wrap different colors, or why is this box say something else on it?" But you're doing that for a reason, right?
Yep,
And for
totally.
a good reason.
Yeah, and once we explain that to them, I think everyone so far has been super on board with it. You know, it's kind of wasteful to throw that perfectly good packaging away and buy new stuff to wrap up the frame. So
No,
we're pretty proud of that.
Working at a bike shop, there's quite a bit of waste that you see. So I, for one, really appreciate that. All right, well, I think that covers sort of all the questions that I had about Revel bikes. We do have both the Rail and the Rascal loaded up into our visual bike builder on the site. If you haven't seen that tool, check it out. It'll actually build it up in front of you as you select through all your parts. We should be getting these into stock or into inventory any day now if we don't already have them. If you have any questions, obviously you can hit us up on the website, give us a phone call, 844-326-2845, or shoot us an email at sales@fanatikbike.com. Kevin, thanks for coming out from Carbondale,
No problem.
telling us about these cool bikes and riding bikes with us. We'll look forward to the next time you guys make it out.
Of course, thank you. See you guys on the trails.